Welcome to this session on socio-economic aspects, let's say. Welcome also to the people connected via the Zoom platform. We will try to give them maximum of participation, let's say, of contribution in this session. I introduce myself, Luca SANTAROSSA. I'm a consultant for CPMR. CPMR is the Conference of Peripheral and Maritime Regions of Europe. And we are a partner in an horizontal project of InterregMed program called Mediterranean Biodiversity Protection Community that support a range, a group of projects into the conservation and valorization of natural capitals in the Mediterranean, in the marine protected areas. This session is a pretty, let's say, has a specific goal because at the opposite of the overall forum, no, that look for finding the best ways, the best tools to support the MPAs. In this session, we focalize our discussion on how the MPAs can contribute to the local communities, no? Because we know that one of the first problems when we establish an MPA is the reaction of local communities and economic operators tackled by the establishment of the marine protected area. And of course, the small-scale fishermen are one of the main economic sector impacted by the small-scale fisher, by the protection, no, of the marine environment. And I already went in the contents of the session that I forgot to speak about, but I think that all of you are already used, no, about the technical issues to get connected. So let's say I'm Luca SANTAROSSA, then Antonio CALO from University of Palermo will make the introduction, no, of the topic and will give the context, the framework, let's say. We thank you a lot, Emanuele Maniscalco and Jordi Juarez, that are colleagues of mine that will take notes and will try to translate our discussion in suggestions for improvement, the roadmap, the recommendation, the roadmap. And I was speaking already here, no? Our contributions, our presentation with the case studies, and especially our debate, will try to improve the recommendation 3.3 and 3.1 that are in the management topic, management strategic recommendation, but focuses on the problem of the local stakeholder acceptance. Okay, so the title of the session, no? How the MPA can benefit the small-scale fishermen. And with this goal, we will see that there are many possibilities, many options, no, to benefit from socio-economic point of view, the local artisanal fishermen, and dealing with engagement in MPA activities, and also increasing the MPA knowledge of the natural capital where the small-scale fishery is based on. This will feed, let's say, the suggestions that at the end of the session, our rapporteur will provide to the organizers to the roadmap. So we have two case studies. One is from Italy, is the Portofino marine protected areas that will be presented by Lorenzo MEROTTO. He's with us. And the second is related to the MPAs in Egypt and their relationship with the fishery. It will be presented by Professor Sahar MEHANNA. She's not attending physically here, but she is connecting via the Zoom platform. So we will hear her through the screen, etc. I stop to save time, and I give the floor to Antonio CALO for the introductory speech.
So thank you all for being here. My name is Antonio CALO from the University of Palermo. I hope this discussion can be useful for the roadmap. So So as you all know, MPAs can provide actually a series of ecological benefits. This is now straightforward. We don't have any doubts. But of course, this ecological benefits depends a lot on protection level and a series of conditions that have to be met in the MPAs, like, for example, high enforcement. Now, ecological benefits could provide socio-economic benefits, for example, for small-scale fisheries. Here is the theoretical process. So we put an MPA, and after some years, if the enforcement is high, so if the MPA works well, after some years, we have an increase in biomass in the fully protected area, and then the spillover occurs. So there is a portion of this biomass that is transferred to the partially protected area, and here it becomes available, let's say, for fishermen, and they can take advantage of this biomass. So in theory, these ecological benefits can increase catches and revenues for fishers, so also their well-being. The problem is that we have very few information about this process. So at the moment, we are not really able to assess if marine protected areas are really able to increase fishers' revenues and catches, because we don't have so many information about this process. You may all know that small-scale fisheries are a paramount activity in coastal areas, especially in the Mediterranean Sea, where they employ a large portion of the fishers involved in the fishery sector. They are historical activities rooted in traditions. They are generally less impacting than other fishery sectors, like, for example, industrial fishing. And recently, researchers discovered that they also contribute enormously to the nutritional uptake, so to our diet. So they are very important from a variety of points of view. Okay. But the problem is that also for small-scale fisheries, this importance was recognized relatively recently. And just in the last few years, there was an increased attention about this small-scale, about this fishery sector worldwide. And a series of initiatives started very recently, like, for example, the launching of the International Year for Artisanal Fisheries and Aquaculture, like last week. So why we have so few data about small-scale fisheries, and also these data are not very good? Well, this is related mainly to a series of characteristics of small-scale fisheries. They are very diverse. So this is also why we don't even have a universal definition of small-scale fisheries worldwide, because they are very diverse. They have some inherent characteristics that make them difficult to assess. Like, for example, it's difficult to access small-scale fisheries communities because they are generally quite close. So it's difficult for us to enter these communities and to engage fishers for the assessment. There is a scarce engagement of fishers, and up to now, there was also a poor willingness to monitor this sector. Generally, industrial fishing is much more important from let's say, a monitoring point of view. So in this context, we lack baseline data about small-scale fisheries, and also we lack common methodologies to monitoring this sector. So this very scattered and few information don't allow us to assess in general, the socio-economic aspects of small-scale fisheries, and this, of course, is also the case in marine protected areas. We have a poor capacity to assess socio-economic benefits related to small-scale fisheries in marine protected areas, because we don't really monitor this sector. And that's why there is globally, independently from marine protected areas, there is a global call for gathering information about this sector, as you can see in the voluntary guidelines, in the regional plan of action, and also in the last roadmap. So in a recent project that was closed a couple of years ago, we tried to, among other actions, we tried to assess the socio-economic benefits of small-scale fisheries. This was done among other actions that were aimed to improve the conditions through an improvement in governance of small-scale fisheries within marine protected areas. This project, Fishery MPA Blue 2, was conducted in 11 marine protected areas, different types of marine protected areas, in 6 EU countries, and where there were operating more than 260 small-scale fishers. And in order to assess the socio-economic benefits that MPAs can provide, we monitored small-scale fishery catches carried out within the marine protected area, so in the partially protected area, and outside in nearby fished areas. And we monitored more than 1,300 small-scale fishery catches and interviewed almost 150 fishers. We did this through a collaborative approach. If you want to know more about this, the entire project and this collaborative approach, you can follow the presentation that my colleague Antonio Di Franco is going to present in the afternoon at the museum. But in any case, in each MPA, we increase the engagement of fishers by setting up this local governance cluster that was basically a cooperation platform between the MPA managers and the fishers. And in many cases, in multiple MPAs, this was the first time that fishers were formally engaged in the management activities of the MPA. So within this platform, fishers were also engaged for an active monitoring of small-scale fishery catches. And then we coupled this collaborative approach through with an ad hoc monitoring protocol that was quite practical. And basically, the MPA staff was trained for the monitoring. In particular, we taught them to use a photo sampling monitoring protocol. So basically, catches were photo sampled, and then pictures were analyzed through image software analysis by researchers. And then we extracted data of length of each fish. And then from this length data, we obtained the wet weight of fish. So basically the biomass of each catch, and coupling information about the biomass with information about the ex-vessel price of each species, we obtained the revenues that fishers were making from the catches. And with information about the fishing effort, we obtained the catch per unit of effort and revenue per unit of effort of each catch. And then we basically compared the CPUE and the RPUE of catches coming from the partially protected area and the area nearby, the fished area nearby unprotected, to see if the MPA can have an effect on these on socioeconomic effects on these variables. So these are some overall results. You can see that there is a slightly higher catch per unit of effort within the partially protected area compared to outside, okay, both in terms of catch per unit of effort and revenues per unit of effort. But this difference is not statistically significant, but this is the overall picture, I mean, with all the data coupled, pulled together. While this is what happened in each MPA. So let me explain this plot. Basically, you have the horizontal line is the zero. The dots that are above the line and are blue means that in that specific case, in that specific MPA, in this case, catch per unit of effort is higher when fishers were fishing within the marine protected area compared to outside. Okay, so for example, in this case, in the first case, in this MPA in Bonifacio, fishers were catching more fish when they fished inside the MPA compared to outside, while the dots that are below the line and are red means that means the contrary. So fishers were catching more fish when they fished outside the MPA. And as you can see, the picture is quite interesting, because there is just one MPA in which fishers were catching more fish outside the MPA compared to inside, while almost 50% of the MPAs, in almost 50% of the MPAs, fishers were catching higher catches within the MPA. And this is for the revenues, and in this case, you don't see any red dots, so it means that in any case, fishers are gaining more money when they fish outside. Of course, there are a series of gray dots. That means basically that there are no differences between fish catches carried out outside and inside the MPA, but still we have a certain percentage of MPAs in which we highlighted economic benefits of the related to the protection, no? So which revenues were higher when fishers were catching inside the MPAs compared to outside. And so this was a quite practical and successful monitoring protocol. So these coupling together this collaborative approach with the local governance cluster with this monitoring protocol. And so we disseminated these also to try to improve small-scale fishery assessment in multiple MPAs, apart from those directly involved in Fish MPA Blue 2. And basically, by summer 2022, we will be able to transfer this monitoring protocol in almost 40 MPAs, most likely, mostly in the West Mediterranean Sea, but also we are trying to disseminate it also in the eastern part, in North Africa, through different actions. So a couple of issues and that can be useful for the roadmap. The first one is specifically related to recommendation 3.3 about the importance of engagement of fishers in the management activities of the MPA, and how this can benefit, especially the socio-economic assessment, as I showed you now. It's really important to engage fishers, but it's very important to keep that engagement high, especially in the context of a monitoring. For example, the monitoring of small-scale fisheries. It's really important to keep that monitoring, because, you know, for example, for fishes, it's normal. You can go to the sea every year and to monitor fishes, and they're not going to say, I don't want to be monitored. But in the case of fishers, this can happen. So also in the context of a cooperation board, like the local governance cluster, this can happen. So fishers lose their willingness to collaborate. So it's important to find ways to keep their collaboration high over the years. And this can be done, for example, by presenting them, by giving them tangible benefits of their collaboration with the MPA. And the other important point related to 3.1 and the importance to identify fundamental variables to monitor is that we practically don't have data about small-scale fishery effort anywhere. Practically anywhere in the world, but in the Mediterranean Sea, because it's our sea, this is a very big problem. We don't have any data about small-scale fishery effort. So in many cases, even within this set of MPAs, that was a virtuous set of MPAs that was selected on purpose, let's say, even in this case, some MPAs don't know how many fishers fish in their areas. So this is a very big problem in order when we need to assess, for example, yields of fishery. Okay, so the quantity, the overall quantity of fish that are extracted from the sea over the year, or the overall money that fishers are gaining. Okay, so these are a couple of recommendations that can be highlighted in the next roadmap. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Antonio. And I'm sure that there are a lot of questions or comments in the audience, but we decided to keep the questions and reactions for the discussion, because as you understood also from other sessions, we are here not to improve, let's say, the case study presentation, but to transfer our thinking in suggestion for the roadmap. So we move immediately to the first case study, Lorenzo MEROTTO from Portofino MPA, that will present us a concrete implementation of some of these points that Antonio raised. Please introduce yourself. I will also check your time. Okay. Don't mind.
So, thanks, Luca. I'm Lorenzo MEROTTO from Portofino MPA. I'm part of the scientific staff of the MPA, and I am one of the people trained by Antonio in Fish MPA Blue Chew project. So this is Portofino Marine Protected Area. Is in the north of Italy near Genoa, more or less 40 kilometers from Genoa. It's a very small area because it's 346 hectares, and is the third smallest MPA in Italy. And the management is a consortium of public entities. So there are the three municipalities in the territory of the MPA, the University of Genoa. Now it's better to breathe. And it's quite young, but it's a little bit more than a teenager MPA because it have more than 20 years. It's 1999. And the morphology of the coast is mainly, as you can see in this picture, cliff that continue under the water. And there are rocky bottoms, as you can imagine, coralligenous and Posidonia oceanica meadows. The scientific staff is 3 scientific technicians, 3 administrative, and the director. And I want to do this overall view on the MPA because it's very small, but we have a lot of different stakeholders and a high number of users of each category. The main are the artisanal fishermen, the recreational fishermen, the divers, and the boaters. Talking about the small-scale fisheries, we have the fishermen, and that are one of the main stakeholders, not the most abundant, but they have a huge influence in the MPA. So their engagement is absolutely necessary because first of all, they represent the historical memory of the place, not only from fishing point of view, okay? We do different monitoring to try to reconstruct the fish population with them. Now they can give precious data, like for the monitoring done in Fish MPA Blue Chew or the historic data, but also information. In Fish MPA Blue Chew, we did a sort of agreement with some of them, and they report us the thing that they see and they think that are infractions. Sometimes sometimes they didn't, it weren't infraction, but it's important. And their activity anyway can have a huge impact on the habitat. And if it is done in the wrong way, it can cause also conflicts with the other stakeholders. First of all, the divers. The fight between divers and fishermen is like a cat and dog. But they also can provide a lot of suggestions to improve the management. I don't spend many time on this way to engage them because Antonio before speak very well about, for example, the monitoring done in Fish MPA Blue Chew, testing fishing trip. So, for example, I go with the fishermen, with some fishermen in boat with them, and I see how they fish and exactly every everything that they catch. For example, also the bycatch that in fish MPA blood methodology is difficult to quantificate. And the use of logbook only for some, for example, the cooperatives that are organization most serious somehow. And so this is the first step to involve them that we do. And the second, we help them in finding funds. So for example, we give them support to write project, regional project, national project on the fishing, because often they go to some association that they ask to be paid. We do for free. If a fisherman know that there is a call for a project on small scale fisheries, he called to us, can you help us? Yes. Or we say to them, hey, there is a call. Do you want to do a proposal? And it's worked quite well. And the MPA give sometimes money to the fishermen to do, for example, activity to, for example, the scientific trip is time consuming for the fishermen, also for the MPA staff. So it's needed to be founded. And some fishermen like this is one of the best fishermen in our area, like so much to do dissemination activity. The fishermen love to speak about their activity. So what often do is to take group of people, of students, children, and say to him, we have some students. Do you want to do the scientific dissemination? And sometimes we provide him his customers and they pay him. Sometimes we have some funds for dissemination with the fishermen, so we pay for the lesson to him. And these are some steps to reach this. This is quite a historical meeting, because we have a representative of the recreational fishermen, a representative of the divers, a representative of artisanal fishermen, and us for the MPA. So what's happened if there is a problem, if there are problems that involve all the stakeholders, they have some representative that are able to think, to speak with other category. It's important to improve the management of the MPA. For example, in this meeting was the meeting to try to reduce the impact of all the fishing device, both recreational and professional, on the bottom of the MPA. And we also do meeting only with recreational fishermen, only with artisanal fishermen. One years ago, we do, and also in a Fish MPA Blue 2 project, meeting with more or less all the fishermen, artisanal fishermen in the MPA. Okay, so the involvement of the small-scale fishermen is slow process, because you have to gain their trust, taking consideration their need and perception, and when they understand that you can help them, they start to collaborate more. So as I already say, the objective is to make the MPA be seen like an ally for them and not an enemy. And I think that in Portofino MPA, for the 70%, 80% of the fishermen is this. And sometimes some fishermen doesn't want to collaborate, and so you have to try, but don't lose time. It's better if the majority of the fishermen are collaborative. It's better to focus on them. So the recommendation for the 3.3, first of all, improve the knowledge. So with monitoring and evaluation of natural capital. I didn't say that the methodology of Fish MPA Blue Chew, we capitalize it in the InterregMed project MPA networks with MedPan as a leader. And we do the natural capital value with that data. Involve them in several activities. Do co-management. It's hard to do because it's very, you are very tired after work for weeks to do a meeting, but it pay. And for the recommendation 4.6, it's very important to organize training and capacity building. The fishermen want to know, want to improve their ability, and at the same time want to know the results of their monitoring, for example. So the indicators can be the fishing effort, the number of activities where the fishermen were involved, monitoring, but also dissemination or meeting or capacity building, and the number of the fisher involved. To do this, you can, first of all, starting from cooperatives and the fishermen association in general. With research organization, the use of university of research organization is fundamental, and you can use other MPA to exchange your experience. Thank you. I've been so long, but...
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. This was now a clear, concrete example of the implementation of such principles and measures that is working, no? And it's true that Portofino is working on this field for many years, but now they are realizing the good effects of this approach. So we move immediately to the second and last case study. I thank Mrs. Sahar MEHANNA that is online with us, I hope, because she is supposed to present her presentation about Egyptian MPAs and the relationship with the fishery.
Yes,
Sahar, are you with us?
Yes, I am here.
Fantastic. Can we see your face also?
Okay,
I don't know if technician.
from where? Yes, start the video. Do you see me now?
Can you shift? Yeah, hi, welcome with us.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Unfortunately, Sahar didn't manage to obtain the visa to join us physically here, but we are happy in any case to see you on the screen and to hear from you the presentation of the situation of MPAs and small-scale fishery in Egypt. We manage the PowerPoint from here. You just tell next slide and we advance. Okay? Thank you so much. Please show the presentation now.
Okay.
You can start, Sahar.
Okay. My name is Sahar MEHANNA. I am a professor of fisheries management. I am working for National Institute of Oceanography and Fisheries in Egypt. And my talk today under the title, An Overview on the Egyptian MPAs and its role in the fisheries management in Egypt. Next. Egypt is a country lies in the Northeast Africa and has a total area of more than 1 million kilometers square, from which about the quarter of its area is marine. Egypt bordered by two important seas, the Mediterranean Sea in the north and the Red Sea in the east. We have 30 BAs now, from which 8 are MPAs. we choose or we protect these areas based on two factors: the inherent value of the resource, the financial benefit, and the for biodiversity conservation or the degree of threat to which it is exposed. Next. If we look at the Egyptian map and the distribution of marine protected areas in Egypt, as I said, we have 8 ones. Most of them, or 7 of them, are located on the Red Sea, and the only one located on the Mediterranean Sea. But we supposed to increase this number in the future or near future. Next. If we look at the first marine protected area established in Egypt, it is Ras Mohammed National Park. If you hear about Ras Mohammed, it's a famous place and unique place in the world. Contain or involve with many unique habitats for coral reefs, for mangroves, for fishes, ornamental fishes. This is established at 1983. And as I said, it's very, very, very unique place through the world. Many activities done in this area. Although the fishing prohibited in this area, but it's allowed to the Bedouins or the local communities. This is for socio-economic and political reason in Egypt. Next. Maybe Salom. This is the last MPA established in Egypt and the only one on the Mediterranean Sea. It established in 2010, and in between two, we have 6 protected marine protected areas in between, established since 1986 to 26. This is Alba or Hamata on Red Sea, Nab protected area also on Red Sea, Abu Galoum on Gulf of Aqaba also Red Sea, Wadi al-Gimal, Hamata Red Sea Northern Islands, and the Malahi Ras Suqair. All these protected areas mainly for conservation of coral reefs and the mangroves on the Red Sea. Also the fishing is not allowed in these areas, but it is not enforced and also allowed to the local communities and the people in the coastal areas of these marine protected area. Next. Although 1 or 2 of these marine protected areas are well equipped and have many facilitations to make its surveillance and monitoring, but all others MPAs not have these facilities. So we have some threats or main threats which we can conclude it in these points. The recreational use of these MPAs. At first, the people use these recreational activities for enjoy or for fun, but now they use it for commercial catching of ornamental fishes and eating fishes. Also, the coral reef deterioration, pollution from tourism activities and from oil spills. Also, illegal fishing and illegal fishing methods used there, and the poor law enforcement because there is no good monitoring for these areas, lack of community support, as well as lack of information because we don't have a complete information or a good records for what happened in these areas or what happened with the local communities inside these MPAs. Also, inadequate budgets, the shortage of finance in Egypt, and inadequate staff with poor training is also other threat for these areas because we need a good records and good data and correct data to monitoring and to manage this protected area. Management actions are informed by research and monitoring programs. The fact there is no link between the rangers or the MPAs people and the scientific research institutes or universities to complete the work between each other. The staff training and the career development is very poor, and I think this is not a good or very important point, because without trained staff, there is no action well done in the MPAs, even the law is established. Next. So the actions we use, recommendation 3.1, support and enhance the scientific research, because there is no problem can be solved without scientific research or sound scientific research. So it's good to make good records and adequate database to improve the knowledge about habitats and temperatures for defining the critical habitats like spawning and nursery grounds where to protect certain life stages of marine species. Also, the monitoring and surveillance program in Egypt should be improved, and people with good train can use this, or the facilitations should be improved also. Proposal of new MPAs in near future. Egypt government decide to increase the area of marine protected areas from 5% of the land or the area of Egypt to 10% as recommended by IUCN. Next. Action 2, recommendation 3.3, communication between MPA rangers, responsible authorities, local communities, mostly between, and the resource user should be fostered, because involvement of all stakeholders use the area, it should be established and they should be done. Regular consultations should be maintained with the indigenous community representatives such as tribal leaders or sheikh qabila, as we say in Egypt. The people inside the qabila or this community obey the sheikh more than the government. So involvement of these leaders, it's very important to make people obey and understand and make action. Good governance system for fisheries management, including adequate stakeholder participation with integration of diverse interests and viewpoints of all stakeholders. Next. So indicators under 3.1, number of MPAs with adequate database on habitats and temperatures. Monitoring campaigns carried out every 5 years. Number of new MPAs established in the next 5 years. We intend to establish 2 MPAs on Mediterranean, to be 3 MPAs on the Mediterranean, and the whole Red Sea will be established as protected area. Indicators under 3.3, number of communication campaigns carried out every year. Number of regular consultations with indigenous community representatives carried out every year. Establishment of fisheries management plan to protect the all high lifespans in the area. Next. So partnerships, in fact, all the governmental bodies or authorities bodies in Egypt make effort in this sense, or in the to protect nature or to protect life, nature life, like universities and the national institutes of scientific research, local NGOs. We have a lot of NGOs dealing with this aspect or with this issue to protect and to conserve the nature. International agencies, NGOs like IUCN, RACS, SPA, and the MidBan. On the local NGOs on the local level, indigenous community representatives, it's very important. International organization like GCM, we have cooperate with this and we have representatives for all these organizations and agencies in Egypt, but still there is no cooperation in a good level or maybe this office is not know that we have a National Institute for Scientific Research dealing with these areas or with MPAs, and we have some data for begin good recording data. The communication and the knowing each other, it's not established, well established in Egypt, and we need more effort to disseminate and cooperate between these all organizations and agencies in Egypt. Next. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sahar. We realized that the strong commitment of the Egyptian government in increasing the conservation of marine environment, but also the strong importance that small-scale fishery has in your country. So the gaps in knowledge and the needs of involving this sector. And finally, the main gaps is to set up a management, an approach in managing small-scale fisheries in MPAs. So we say we wish you good work for the next year, but we thank you for the contribution of today. And of course, stay with us, because now we open the discussions, and also the speaker can, of course, intervene. But I have one mic here to open for questions, for comments, for discussion. Let's say we have more than half an hour. So who want to break the ice? Yes. Please introduce yourself and then.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Genti Kromida from Albania, from Institute for Nature Conservation in Albania. And I just want to say that we are implemented in the last year a project which is similar to what Lorenzo was telling us about understanding the efforts of small-scale fisheries in this protected area of Karaburun Sazan. And I would like to confirm the recommendations he's giving, that it's important when you work with small-scale fishermen, when you want to engage them, that first of all, you build trust, so they trust that you are sincere, you are supporting them. And then they like to see benefits. So for example, we were surprised in our meetings with fishermen that they were asking for better law enforcement. So they want the government authorities to control illegal activities of fishing, but they also want simple support in their activities, like facilitating permissions they are needed for whatever activity they do. For example, during summer, some fishermen engage in touristic activities, but for that, they will need to get a permission from the Ministry of Tourism, which is bureaucratically very, very difficult. So they want support from the MPA staff, from other government structures to facilitate with them. Additionally, also to use structures that are used by large-scale fishers, like landing sites or other facilities for collecting their fish. So whenever you want to engage them, you also have to offer them some benefits. So they have to see the benefits of getting engaged in the MPA management. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mukhtar Saeed from Libya, from National Council for Human Rights, but I was in the Ministry of Environment, just to change the work now.
You here.
So first of all, thank you for all the presenters for this really nice presentations. I have really some thinking that we should think before start to work on the MPAs in general. First of all, we need to have a socio-economic study, which is it's very important to know all the area. And before that, if you need to know the future, you should go to the history. If we know the history of the place, then we will find the key people who help us to reach our goals. Last year, I had a socio-economic study at Gulf of Cette in Libya, and we need to discover the area. I have worked in this place since 2005 for conservation of sea turtles, but really the information that I have collected last year from this socio-economic study, it was huge information for the history. And then we need to go through the fisherman who's trusted by others. So to build the trust, it is very important to going on. So we just find the old fisherman, and then we go with him to the other fishers to help us and to collect the information. It's not easy. At the first presentation, you said that it is not easy to take information from fishermen. It is all in the Mediterranean. But how you can collect this information? You should go through the trust people who's working with them. This is really it's a very important key. And the second one, after that, I have mentioned it yesterday, Anna, that we should bridge between the local communities and decision makers through MPA managers and institutions. This is really very important bridge, how we can make the trust with the local communities, with the fishers, and then also make the bridge between them and the decision makers to know what's the important area, because you know that all the MPAs, it is placed in some areas that only we have a town and the local communities, they don't get the benefit from this MPA. Sometimes there are NGOs, there are institutions, they get the fund from international organizations, and the local community just, they are seeing these activities going in their place, and there are no benefit for them. So we should thinking about that for the local community and also the fishers. Thank you.
Thank you so much from both of our contributions. I catch from your, I grasp from your contribution, first of all, the highlighting that we must offer concrete socio-economic benefits. Can be economic, it's easier, but also they can be social. Secondly, the role of MPA can be to provide such benefits through involvement of activities run by the MPAs itself or not, like pescatourism is just, the fishermen just, they can need just a support from the MPA, but we have these two different groups of economic activities. And from your contribution, the importance of a stakeholder analysis to see also among the fishermen, for example, who are the leaders, who are the ones that had also from the past a better approach towards our goals, because of course for the fisherman has from one hand let's say a lack of education sometimes in terms of conservation, I mean, and on the other time a conservative behavior, let's say. So we must start from those more open, more willing to this. Speaking of fishermen, I know we have online the FarNet representative, Mrs. Veronesi, that would like to provide us with some experiences of flags cooperating with MPAs on the for a benefit of the small artisanal fisher. I don't know if Mrs. Veronesi is ready to intervene.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Hi, good morning. Thanks to be with us. Just to give also participation to the attendees online. Please, the floor is yours.
So yeah, just perhaps bouncing off those last two comments on the importance of building trust and also ensuring there's benefits for fishermen, but also...
Sorry, Monica, introduce yourself and your organization, please.
Sure. So I'm Monica Veronesi, as you mentioned, from FarNet. FarNet is a network of fisheries local action groups, flags, which there's about 350 flags around Europe in different coastal areas, also in inland areas, and they're funded by the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, the EMFF, to basically foster socio-economic development in fishing communities. They receive a budget and they can fund depending on their local development strategy. So each local group will develop a local development strategy for a period of around 5 years, and they will choose what are the pressing challenges or opportunities that they want to fund in their areas. So in some of these groups work more on environmental issues. A lot of them will work on short circuits, direct sales for local fishing products. And in terms of NPA, so we have one particular example I wanted to mention, and that goes back to the sort of involvement of fishermen rather in MPAs, and in particular in enforcement. So they funded So it's in Spain, in a region called Murcia, which is southern Spain. And there, basically in 1995, actually, the regional administration had set up what they call a fisheries reserve. So it's a marine protected area, but that you can fish in, but it's restricted. That was set up in 1995, and at the beginning that worked fairly well. The fishermen were against it; they were not happy about the reserve at the beginning. After a couple of years, they saw that the fish basically stocks recovered well, and the size and number of fish was increasing quite significantly. It's also an area with a lot of tourism. And as the fish stocks and size improved, a lot of recreational and also illegal fishing started to happen in this reserve. So in 2018 it was, the flag funded a very simple project to basically get fishermen involved in helping enforce the protection measures that were supposed to be in place. So basically there were patrols done by the regional administration a couple of times a day, but everybody knew the Coast Guard will pass at this time of the day and this time, and so apart from not fishing at that moment, illegal fishing carried on. In 2018, the flag basically gave a grant to the local fishing association for small scale fishermen to participate in the control of the area. So over the summer months when illegal fishing was most problematic, there were eight fishing boats that could fish in the reserve. 8 small scale fishermen fishing boats could carry on fishing. Of those 8, one of them stopped fishing for the 3 months over the summer and instead was paid to undertake surveillance activities. So he would have his logbook, and basically whenever they noticed any boat start coming into the area, often tourism boats or any other type of illegal fishing, he would call the Coast Guard, who would come and give a fine to those people. So that basically, it's been 4 years now that that's been happening, and they've seen a 90% reduction in illegal fishing basically in that time. So it's been very effective, that collaboration between the fishermen who actually know they're there sort of all the time, they know who's allowed to be in the area and who's not, and that's been very effective in terms of actually stopping illegal fishing in that area. As a result, fishermen in nearby areas have also been very keen to set up marine reserves in their areas. So in 2020, so last year, Cabo Tinhoso, which is an area not far from Cabo de Palos, was the first one in 2018. And then last year, they set up a new one in Cabo Tinhoso with the fishing associations of that area. And now there's going to be another one in 2022. So I think the fact that this is catching on in many ways speaks for itself. It's led by the fishermen, and they can see the benefits very clearly. They don't have a lot of figures, but in terms of illegal fishing, the president points to 90% reduction in terms of the number of boats that they're intercepting in terms of illegal fishing, and also clearly saying that the stocks have increased and the size of fish as well.
Thank you so much, Monica, for this real clear and concrete and impacting, let's say, example. You said that when the fishermen are involved, in the management and especially in the surveillance of the MPA. I don't know if from online someone else wants to intervene. They have to push the button to raise the hand. I don't know if the technician is checking that someone want to intervene from online at the audience or from here. Any other contribution? Any other comment? Please.
Thank you. My name's Robin Snape, and I'm a research fellow at the University of Exeter, and I'm based and work in northern Cyprus with artisanal fishermen there. My first comment was for, sorry, I didn't get your name. Antonio. Your presentation was really good. I enjoyed it. And I think we need to try to find ways of selling MPAs to fishermen, and one of them is this spillover effect that people are talking about. You know, a lot of the fishermen are really scared for their income. They can see the stocks are declining and their effort is increasing to maintain the same yield. So I think it's really important to identify where MPAs are really working, and maybe to develop a list of like the good case studies for us to go to the fishermen and organize exchange projects, bring fishermen to see with their own eyes and speak to the fishermen that are seeing these benefits to, you know, get their testimony. I think that's really important to develop and to sort of integrate into the roadmap to, you know, have these good example case studies. And in your study, it looked like the results weren't that significant, but I guess that there are quite a lot of variance in the degree and the age and the establishment of the MPA. Some of them may have been very long established. Some of them maybe have very strict rules. And perhaps if you only looked at the ones which were really well established and maybe larger, then the results may be significant. And I think it's important to maybe to branch that out and start to do it more Mediterranean wide, as it looks like you are. And the second point I wanted to raise was regarding the lack of information about small-scale fisheries fishing effort, which is really a global problem, as you said. But there's some work going on recently. During my PhD, we used small GPS sports loggers, which are cheaply available. They're like €50, and you can change them once every month, but you have to get the buy-in of the fishermen, obviously, and the permit. And we managed to develop quite a good fisheries footprint for our fisheries areas. And we realized that they're like completely ignoring the MPAs, which are at the moment just paper parks anyway. But we're now going forward with that with a company called the Arabada Initiative, and developing a system for VMS for small scale fisheries, and the devices are like going to be about €100, and they use low RAN system. So we have a couple of antennas on the governmental installations in the mountains, and with those we should be able to track all of the small scale fishing vessels when they get their license. They will be issued with the GPS, which they integrate into their 12-volt system. And live time, the government or the fisheries cooperative will be able to see where they are, and they can have a system where polygons are established. And if the boats go into those polygons, then the local cooperative gets an SMS telling them that there's been a breach of the legislation and they've gone into the MPA, this kind of quite cool stuff. So I just wanted to mention these studies, and also the vessel tracking is really important, not just for managing the MPAs, but for understanding the fishing effort and extrapolating catches and bycatches to the nationwide fleet.
Yes, thanks. Just to reinforce what you said, I think that having the knowledge not only of the environment, the habitats and the fish stocks, but also of the fish effort is the enabling condition, let's say, to start any kind of dialogue, any kind of engagement with the fishermen. I saw that Alan wanted to take the floor.
Oui.
Yeah, please.
Oui, bonjour. Oui, bonjour.
Introduisez-vous vous-même et votre organisation.
Je m'appelle Alain Blaillot, je fais partie d'une organisation, d'une association qui s'appelle l'Encre de mer, et nous avons travaillé sur la reconnaissance des prud'hommies de pêche en tant que patrimoine culturel immatériel. Parce que nous pensons que les pêcheurs, en France du moins, je ne connais pas les autres pays, un peu l'Espagne, ont une connaissance à travers leur prud'homie et à travers leur quota. Vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui, on vous entend bien.
Ils ont une connaissance assez extraordinaire, qui est séculaire d'ailleurs, qui est très, très ancienne, des milieux de pêche, des zones de pêche, de tout ce qui peut constituer l'intérêt biologique d'un biotope. Et partant de ce principe, nous avons plutôt adopté comme stratégie de faire reconnaître par la France et après par l'UNESCO ce savoir-faire et ces connaissances comme faisant partie du patrimoine culturel immatériel. Partant de là, il nous semble que les aires marines protégées ont tout à gagner, et ça a été beaucoup dit ce matin, je m'en félicite, les aires marines protégées ont tout à gagner à collecter, à recueillir cette culture des pêcheurs et à la prendre non seulement comme conseil dans l'immédiat, c'est-à-dire sur la pêche qu'on va faire maintenant, mais aussi sur la pêche que l'on peut anticiper et dans les années futures. Il me semble qu'il y a beaucoup de témoignages qui ont été donnés d'exemples de relations entre les AMP et aux pêcheurs qui ont conduit à ce type de connaissances, à ce type de résultats. Et je crois qu'il y aurait un intérêt à faire un travail au niveau international, parce que même s'il n'y a pas des prud'homies au sens strict du terme, c'est-à-dire une prud'homie, c'est une juridiction, c'est un groupe, une communauté qui relève à peu près 2-3 communes littorales. Donc, c'est quelque chose qui est limité dans l'espace, exactement comme une aire marine protégée, et qui est géré de la même manière, c'est-à-dire il y a une attribution équitable du profit de la pêche. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. Just to follow up on this intervention, no? The good question is, which will be the future fishing activity in Mediterranean? No? I guess that this is a topic high in the political agenda of the European Commission. Also because I see something similar to what happened 30, 40 years ago about farmers, no? When the common agricultural policy started, was enforced. So also we all know that also for artisanal fishermen in the Mediterranean is not just an economic problem of resilience, but also a territorial problem. There is a need to keep this sector, but in a modern way, so following also economic rules. So another point is that where it was touched by some of us is also to diversify, the sources of income for fishermen and families. This is another topic. Any other comments, remark, contribution from the audience? I don't know, from online. Yes, please. I give you the mic.
Annie from BirdLife Cyprus. I just had a question for the co-management topic that was referred, especially in the Portofino project. I was wondering, how do you envisage the sustainability and the continuation of having a co-management committee beyond the end of projects, especially when funding is a key factor to keep having meetings and to keep the involvement of fishermen or small-scale fishermen. And I was wondering whether you factor that in the recommendations of the roadmap to maintain a momentum beyond the end of projects.
Okay, it's a good question. Indeed, I raise my hand to add this thing. So it's perfect. First of all, the co-management, it's been enforced in this occasion, but it's the basis of the MPA. I didn't say that you see that this is a consortium with public bodies. There is a board of the director and an assembly with 2 presidents. Every organization in the consortium have elect every 3 years his representative. Actually, we have a president of the board that is a recreational fisherman. The president of the assembly is a recreational fisherman, recreational. In the assembly, there are 2 artisanal fishermen. Okay. So in the structure, organization of the MPA, the co-management is already thinking, okay, it's already present. It can change the people, but for sure, at least 1 recreational and 1 professional fisherman in the assembly, not in the board, but in the assembly, were present. But it's not the solution. From on the paper, it's a good thing. From the real world, not, because they have power sometimes, and they do often their own interests, not the one for the entire category. Indeed, as representative of the artisanal fishermen, we don't have the one in assembly, because with the one in assembly, it's more difficult to work with. Is one of the not collaborative. So you can imagine the difference between politics and real world. The one that we involve and is the representative for the recreational fishermen is the one most modern. He want to do ecotourism. He asked why not do not take zone that change in the years. So anyway, the funds can help the process of involvement, but to have a MPA that works, you have anyway to do a participatory approach, because if you don't do this, it's like no, you don't do monitoring. You don't know what is happening inside the MPA and what are the decision. Then we try to capitalize and this project, this action with other projects. For example, we had the Fish MPA Blue 2, that this was a great step forward in management and monitoring. Then and it was 2017 and 19. In 2020, at the end of 2019, we win together with METPA, no, the MPA networks, and we continue that action. In the 2022, we do again the same action with national fund. So but there are years where we don't have funds, but we have to continue, because if you don't do it, you lose all the work that you did in the past year. So this is for fishermen, this is for divers, this is for each category. Then the more simple thing, the ideal thing is to find funds to continue your action. So, and I want to add another thing on the benefits, collateral benefits. The fisherman that is not collaborative. During an interview of Fish MPA Blue 2, I remember that he say, yeah, with the marine protected area, I don't know, yeah, there are maybe the fish is not increased so much. I'm not agree. I say maybe the fish are less stupid, because I know the fish avoid his nets, that they are always in the same point. So it's like a wall. But he say, anyway, the restriction on the boaters, on the anchoring, help us fishermen. Because if now here should not be a marine protected area, we cannot put the nets, because it can be full of boats. So restriction on the other, they have a restriction. but also other categories have restriction, and so the fishermen have an advantage because they don't lose space where fish.
Okay, thank you. From the intervention of Lorenzo, we understand that the participatory approach in general, and especially co-management system, is fantastic, that can reach big achievements, but also it is complicated. No, it depends on different factors. Then further, I will sum up. Any other remark, contribution, intervention on the topic? If not, I try to wrap up the discussion and to let's say list the elements that we found for improving the recommendation as they are in the roadmap. Online, there is anyone raising a hand? In the Zoom, no?
Yeah, maybe just to clarify one small point on the project in Cabo de Palos. So here it's been, because you were talking about funding again, it was very, very important to get that funding in the first place to actually get them involved. Once, because the fishermen had a direct benefit by actually having their salary basically paid for those months. But afterwards, and there was a rotation. So first year it would be one fisherman or one boat with two fishermen on it. And the year after it would be two other fishermen, etc. And that rotation and that sort of financial incentive at the beginning was very helpful. And now, even without funds in the future, the flag imagines that they will actually carry on doing that surveillance because they've been involved. And that sort of initial getting them mobilized was really important. Once they're mobilized, it's a lot easier.
Thanks, Monica. Please, yes.
Yeah, thank you. David de Montbrison from BR Engineering Consulting Office in France. It was very interesting. Thank you for all the presentation. The finance demonstration is really important, and the increasing data. So one of the recommendation could be to go on in financing on data on small scale, go on financing direct investment of involvement of fishery in control and survey, which are small examples at the scale of Mediterranean and could be really spread if it was supported by financial initiatives and consolidation of finance on tools for donors in particular on this topic of small-scale fisheries, because the data are really lacking, and for demonstration for fishermen, it's really important. And the last one would be to recommend to finance spread initiative of good example on highly protected areas, how you say, highly or strong protection,
not take zone
level of protected areas, to finance only spread regionally spreading these examples in order to have a more massive surface impact with fishermen, because this is really lacking also as a demonstration. With only small areas, it's not enough to have an impact. And the last one also is about the effort in measurement of the rapidness of the impact, because the fishermen are usually reluctant to be involved because the impact is not measured immediately with an MPA. And so to measure with a lot of examples that will be developed in the next 10 years on highly protected areas, to have also a measurement of all these experience, how quickly it made a difference for the local fishermen. And this will be variable according to the size of the MPAs and the local situations.
Yeah, thank you so much, because this is another sensitive point. No, we can say we can provide data, we can prove that making no-take zone will increase the fish stock, etc. But in in a time span of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years sometimes, no? So in this period, fishers must have other incomes, no? They can be in compensations or public compensation or other activities that the MPA can set up to cover this gap, no, in their income. Anyone else want to speak? If not, from online there is someone.
Hello, I'm Beata Santana from Cette. We are working here in the Balearic Islands with marine protected areas, and I'm coordinating a project in a small island. It's a marine protected area here, and I would like to raise the subject about the no-take, because as we have in the horizon the objective of having a 10% declared as no-take, we are wondering how is the best process to implement that and to work towards that direction. And maybe I would like to discuss this with you. Maybe the effort would go from starting with a small part as a no-take area, as we have, for example, in this marine protected area, it's 5%, and then while the MPA is evolving and the life is increasing and improving, incrementing this no-take area in specific MPAs. So maybe it's an easier process to
dynamic approach, let's say.
Yeah, or in phase we could go and start with no-take areas with 10%, and then I don't know. It's two different ways of starting this process, and I would like to know your opinions on this, if possible.
But I would say that this is more a topic about conservation, or managing for conservation.
Well,
So,
no, it's also the way of how you work with the fishermen and how this process is implemented. So if you work on participatory governance and you are trying to go towards these dynamics, how is the best process to implement this with the community? And that's the way we are trying to work here. So how is the best way of
okay, for example, from my experience, I remember in Fish MPA Blue 2, we had two cases about this topic. One is at the end of the project, when the fisher of the MPA realized the benefits of the approach, they supported, let's say, the proposal of the MPA managing body to increase the surface of the MPA, not of the no-take zone, but of the surface of the MPA. But I think that proportionally also the no-take zone would be increased. And the second case that was something similar, in Portofino, that was the test of a short time, some months of not fishing. Please explain where the fishermen accepted the.
Yeah, there is a little shallow with diving sites in Portofino. There are many diving sites, but this one is one of the most used by the divers. There were some fishermen from one of the municipality, because we have 3 municipalities, that they fish in some area and don't go in the area of the other municipality to avoid conflicts. Some of the fishermen fish near this, also in summer, too near to this diving site, and sometimes they go around this shallow with the nets and do damage to the habitat. So what we say is, okay, try to do this in that area, not only near the shallow, in that area, try to not put the nets from, I don't remember, maybe it was from June to mid-September, something like that, by the day. Okay, so, and they didn't anyway. You can go. We went to see in the evening. There were not nets, and without anything, they know that if they put the nets, they didn't get a fee. Anyway, they say, okay, we try to not fish there for one summer, and it works. I am sure that for 1 year it was difficult. It will be difficult, but it was a good results, because only talking without any constriction, we simply ask, okay, you can try, and they try. So
let's try and see the results, and the results were confirming, no?
I don't know if it was for the fishing effort, or because they understand that in order to avoid conflict, they see the MPA try to help them. Maybe they understand, they try to help them, try to help us too. So and some fishermen want this thing. They want that there are more no-take zone. Temporary no-take zone. So the idea is present, and there are many fishermen that want to do a step
back.
And in order, because they understand that they can have benefits. Others not, and the problem is the others. But
the experience is interesting because it was based on voluntary will, let's say, and most of the fishermen accepted, though.
It's the fishermen for only one municipality, so it's more simple, not all.
A big group,
but the others anyway doesn't go in that area.
Good.
So
good. Thanks, Lorenzo. So since the time, I have to summarize. Let's say on one side, our rapporteurs took notes of any kind of suggestion on highlighted point, etc. Now I'm wrapping up, let's say, our discussion saying, we're in the middle of the management of a marine protected area, of the effectiveness of this management. Okay, recommendation, strategic recommendation number 3. The goal of this session was to understand which are the key elements to obtain the small-scale fishery support to the management of the marine protected area, starting from where and gaining which specific things. I understood from our discussion that we can't start any dialogue with the fishermen without taking commitment on concrete socio-economic benefits that must arrive in a certain moment of the process. No, without this, it's difficult to gain the attention of an economic operator that is not also that has problems of resilience, etc., etc. So the final goal to have the participation, the commitment in the process is for them to see concrete benefits, not at the end of the process, but at a certain moment of the process. Before starting the process of engaging them, we need knowledge on the environment, of course, but knowledge on their sector, on their exploitation, and knowledge on them as actors, as social actors, no? So a stakeholder analysis. Then we can start a process of a participatory process that can have different degrees, no, just information, consultation, as we said, we saw also in Egypt, etc. Or we can reach the co-management, but co-management was tackled in other sessions, no, of this MPA Forum, so we don't come back here. But just to say that in these different degrees of involvement, no, we can, let's say, subcontract some activities, or we can support some other activities, or we can involve them in deciding which activity has to be done and who does what, who pay for, etc. So we have different degrees. And in this, thanks to this involvement, let's say, we can not only benefit the small-scale fisher, but also having small-scale fisher supporting, of course, no, the MPA conservation goals. One of the critical points is when we involve the fishermen in MPA run activities like surveillance, we can have good ideal examples as we heard from Spain, but also we can have other troubles we experienced also in in our projects because fishermen, surveilling fishermen, can create problems, and also depending on the law and the authorities competent for such kind of surveillance. So it is a way that we must carry on, but it is not easy as we can say, let's say, in a conference. But in any case, an involvement of fishermen in activities run usually by the MPA, like monitoring, for example, is useful not only for creating the trust, but also for improving the effectiveness of such activities. No, so citizen science-based activities can be very valuable for MPAs that usually they don't have a lot of resources, no, to implement these monitoring activities. And also monitoring help also the compliance to the regulations from the fishers. When fishers are more aware of what have to be conserved, where, how, etc., they change their behavior, and they also can become actors, let's say, of changement of behavior on other users of the same part of the sea. So this, just to summarize, that it is not just the problem is not just how to find money for the fishermen, but how to create synergies, no, with the fishers, so to move them from an initial, let's say, enemies, to exaggerate, but let's say someone that suffer, no, the arrival on MPA, to transform them in cooperators, let's say, of the MPA. But this means that the MPA must also accept to share a bit of power with them, at least in some specific decision. So I would say this is the overall picture of the problem of the interaction between MPA and fishermen, and which can be the paths, no, to follow for improving. Anyway, in our projects, we started from situations where a dialogue between MPA and fishermen were already existing. Of course, there are most of MPAs, they have a problem, you know, we repeat it, they don't know neither how many fish are there, where they fish, etc. But let's say the principles that we experimented and they were more or less successful in our samples, in our best places, let's say, I think that we can say that it can be transferable, of course, adapting them, but to most of the situation that we have in the Mediterranean. Yeah, please.
Je vais parler en français, ce sera plus facile pour exprimer mon idée. En fait, d'entendre tout cela, j'en arrive quand je relis le titre et de soutenir la viabilité financière. En fait, se pose pour moi la question de quelle viabilité financière vraiment on recherche, quoi. Parce que je pense que dans le monde de la pêche artisanale, il n'y a pas une viabilité financière, mais il y a beaucoup de viabilité financière selon les cas des pêcheurs et qu'elles ne se ressemblent pas toutes, quoi. On a, je pense, facilement...
C'est pas seulement financière, la viabilité.
Oui, mais je parle de la viabilité financière, c'est-à-dire que je pense qu'il y a facilement dans la pêche artisanale un facteur de 1 à 10 selon les pêcheurs. Et je pense que les AMP ne peuvent pas soutenir toutes ces viabilités financières. C'est-à-dire que certaines, effectivement, qui ont peut-être des envies qui sont assez modestes, c'est possible. Sur certains pêcheurs qui ont, pour parler sincèrement, des niveaux de vie qui sont peut-être beaucoup plus élevés, je pense que là, on est dans un autre cas et que les AMP ne répondent pas à cette question-là, quoi.
Merci. On peut clôturer. We can close here our sessions. We thank you also the online people. I give you an applause to you.